Hello and welcome back. In the last section, we took our first steps to building our app, and as discussed before, we also had a look at the reference app as well. And now our challenge or our next few tasks would be to make sure we move slowly towards our reference landing page here. There's a lot going on here. Let's dissect what's going under the hood here. If you look at the landing page, there is a certain structure to it. There is a nav bar here right at the top, which hosts all our nav links for browsing the catalog, for the landing page itself, for the cart component. And then there is the main component here, which is the main area, which is going to host all our main content based on where we are positioned in our nav bar. So since we are positioned on the landing page here, it shows us the main content for the landing page. And if we go further down, we have the footer here, right? So which essentially allows us to look at different aspects of the application in terms of the delivery policy, the returns, the support, and also we have navigable links to the social media platform here at the rightmost bottom corner. Okay. In order to do this, let's head over to our diagrams here quickly. I will open another diagram here in terms of how we can deconstruct the page here. So essentially we have a nav bar here, and we have a main content and the footer, and together they constitute a layout component, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to construct a framework here, which will be essentially a layout. And that's going to have a constituent components in the form of a nav bar, a main content, and footer. Okay, the nav bar and the footer will be static in nature, so essentially they convey the same information over and over again. But the main content will be dynamic in nature, right? So essentially, every time we build a new component, we'll be making use of the layout, and we'll be passing the main content dynamically. So that's going to be the gist of how we're going to build new components here and make it available on the nav bar. So what we'll do is we'll first, in this particular session, we will build the basic skeleton structure of all these components, starting with the layout, and then obviously go ahead with the nav bar, the main content, and the footer, and then we'll put more muscle into it to make sure it resembles or comes close to our reference app implementation. Okay, so let's head over to our code base now, and I'll make sure they're lined up side by side. And in here, I've started the app on 3000. Again, if you want to start on a different port, you can actually head over to the package.json and then set the port in here in your scripts. The start script here. Since I would like to start on the default port, I will not go ahead and make those changes. Again, these changes are slightly different. So essentially you have to say set port is equal to, let's say, 8000 and ampersand. That's going to be in case of Windows, okay? But in case of Mac, again, you don't have a set port here. So just say port is equal to 8000 and then React script start, okay? But since I'm more comfortable with the 3000 port, I will go ahead and undo this change. Okay, and I will also make sure I will collapse my sidebar here. Say Control B. All right, super. And that gives us a very good real estate in terms of making our changes as well as seeing our changes live, right? Super. So let's head over to our index.html. I think we did a couple of things here. I want to go ahead and then get rid of this comment as well here. Okay. And I will head over to I'll open the sidebar again. And in the source folder, I will create a new folder called components. And this is going to host all our React components, whether they're presentational or components related to routing or some of the utility components as well. And inside the components, I will go ahead and create a new folder called layout. Okay. Super. The way I'm going to be structuring this folder structure is that for each component we'll have a folder, and inside that folder we'll have the component itself. So inside the layout folder, I will go ahead and create a new component called layout.js. Alright, and one of the reasons I told you that I'm using VS Code is that it has a rich variety of extensions that it provides out of the box, and also in its ecosystem, which you can essentially enable and use, right? I've enabled a few of them, and one of them is the ES6, related to the ES6 snippets. If I go to the extensions here, I should be able to find that. Go over to the extensions, look at ES6. All right, I think I'm referring to, yeah, this is the one that I'm referring to. The React, something to do with React, ES7, ES6. Yeah, this is the one, code snippets, okay? So I have already installed this here. It has like 5.6 million downloads, and I've enabled it here. This is enabled for me, and that will allow me to use some of these syntactic helpers, which allow me to auto-generate the code, right? At least the skeletal part of it. So in order to create a new JS component here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say this is going to be an arrow function. The component is going to be React arrow function. So I'll say RAFCE, okay, and it'll give us some options here. I'll go ahead and then choose the first one. So straight away it auto generates the code for us, all right, which is really nice. It's also a time saver, right? I'll go ahead and make some changes here, and instead of doing a return, so for each component we'll have a specific template. Each component will have a return component. So in this, I'll define a new function, arrow function at that, and I'll say render layout, because this is a layout function. I'll say render layout, and if it were to be a navbar, I'll say render navbar. Okay, this is going to be an arrow function. So hopefully we'll find some more help in terms of the auto generation of the code. Okay, so this is going to be an arrow function, and what I'll also make sure is I'll use the concise syntax, because this is going to be a presentational component, will not have much to do, so it's going to be purely a rendering component. In here, what I'm going to do is I'll say return. I'm going to return because this is a concise syntax. I don't need a return statement, so I'll use the React fragment. Okay, and over here I'm going to say layout, right? And in here I'll go ahead and say I'm going to render. I'm going to call the method render layout here. Okay, super. So this is going to be a template right now in terms of how we're going to build the functions, as I was referring to earlier. And if you look at our diagram here, right, let's head over to the diagram one more time. So we are building the layout, and our layout will have the navbar, the main content, and the footer. So let's go ahead and then incorporate those as well. Inside of the render layout, what I'm going to do is I will have a div that's going to contain all these components, and I will say I want a navbar up front. Okay, navbar. I have not defined these functions yet, so obviously it's going to actually complain about it, the editor. And I'll also need a main here, need a footer. Yeah, so this is going to be the base layout, right? So we have a navbar, we have the main, we have the footer, and looks like it's actually complaining about something right now. So what is that? All right, not a problem. So we'll continue. I don't think it's, and then we'll get to the point where it'll actually explicitly say what the problem is. And next, we'll also define styling for the layout, right? So we don't have a lot of styling right now, but I'll just go ahead and then create a file by the name. I'll go ahead and create a new file here. Where is the new file creation option? Okay, I'll go in here, layout.css, okay, and I'll create a new class called layout, and in here, what I'm gonna do is I just say width. The width is gonna be 100 viewports, okay. So I want to set the width to always be 100 viewports. Let's head over back to layout.js. I'll import this class, the CSS class, like import and layout.css. Alright, super. And I'll also refer the class here by saying class name is equal to layout. Okay, so this should be good here. I'm still getting an error here, I'm not sure why. Let's say I use the regular syntax instead of to say return, oops, not the uppercase, return. Okay, and inside of the braces and this, will that help? Interesting, what's the error saying? JSX closed tagging for the navbar. Okay, I didn't close the navbar, that was a problem. Okay, super. And what else? Main is not defined. Okay, so we need to define these things right now. So the error with the div is gone. So what I can do is I'll get rid of this expansive syntax. I'll just go ahead with the concise syntax now. So let's go ahead and create these navbar and main and the footer. Okay, I will go inside layout. I'm going to go ahead and create another folder for navbar. Okay, like so. And in here, go ahead and create another JS file, the component for navbar, navbar.js, navbar, spelling mistake here. Okay, and I'll use the RIFC syntax generator tool. And in here, I'll go ahead and say const render navbar. Okay, and yeah, I'll use the help, whatever I get from the editor. And in here, I'll just say I want to return what I want to return here. Let's say I want to return a div that says navbar. For now, again, this is going to change drastically as we go along. All right, this is only for the purposes of illustration. Okay, and we're going to change that as we go along, and then I'll go ahead and call render navbar here, render navbar, like so. And likewise, I'll go ahead and create the main component as well. Go in here, create a new folder called main. Inside of main, I'll create another component called main.js. Use RIFC. Alright, and inside here, I'll have another arrow function, says const render main. Okay, this is going to be an arrow function. Okay, and I'll use this concise syntax, so which means I don't need the return statement in here. And over here, I'll just say I'm going to go ahead and return a div that just says main. Okay, all right. So what I'm going to do is instead of the div, I'll just go ahead and return a React fragment. All right, and inside that I'll say call render main. Oops, sorry about that. Okay, render main. Okay, and this has to be in flower brackets. Super. So we have all the components ready here, and we can go over to the layout.js and make sure we address these errors. So I'll say navbar, and I should get an auto import here. Super. And I'll close this. And same for main, auto import, and close it right now with. And likewise for footer, I think I have the footer as well. We didn't create the footer yet. Okay, let's go ahead and create the footer as well then. Inside of layout, go ahead and create a footer folder. And inside of that, I will go ahead and create the footer class, footer.css. And I'll go through the same rigmarole, RIFC. It's not footer.css, it's just footer.js. So I'll go ahead and create footer.js, RIFC, okay, and inside here I'll say arrow function that renders the footer, okay, render footer. I'll use a concise syntax, so I don't need the flower brackets. Okay, and this is going to return a div. Okay, and that says footer. What I'm going to do is I'll get rid of these divs. Say Control D, get rid of it. Simultaneously, I'll make use of the React fragment and call the render footer here inside of flower braces. Let me go ahead and save this as well. Go ahead and import footer now. I should be able to do that. Yes, I can. Go ahead and save that. Now all the errors are gone. And let's see, but we don't see any changes here right now. Okay, so what we're going to do is go over to the app, and inside of app, go ahead and import, instead of the H2, I will go ahead and call the layout. Okay, whether we can get an auto import here. Yes, we can. All right, close it, save it. Let's see what we get here. Okay, there is some problem here. Unexpected token in navbar.js. Let's go ahead. Okay, looks like there is an extra Angular bracket here, so I'll get rid of that. Should be fine now. Yeah, there we go. We have the navbar, main, and the footer. Okay. So we have our first version of the layout. Apparently, we have to usually go ahead and create the navbar, put a little more muscle into it, in the footer and the main as well, okay, which is something that we're gonna go and do in the future lectures. So I think we'll take a pause here. This is the right time to do a quick pause and then come back and then look at how we can actually build on top of this implementation and also provide a little more styling so that it looks as close to our reference app as possible. Okay, let's take a pause, come back in a moment.